Protesters in Paris called on France on Thursday to acknowledge what they called genocide committed against Uyghurs at a demonstration in front of the French Foreign Ministry. They also pointed to the persecution of Falun Gong in China. Members of the French Parliament attended. NTD's Neil Woodrow has the details.
A protest in Paris was organised by a collective of Uyghur, Falun Gong, Tibetan and other communities. Protesters dressed as police officers and soldiers participate in reenactments of persecution. China is accused of committing crimes against humanity and possibly genocide against the Uyghur population in the northwestern region of Xinjiang. Dilna Reyhan, president of the European Uyghur Institute, says France should acknowledge the genocide of Uyghurs.
My family, like the rest of the Uyghur diaspora, lives there, and we are in contact with them. That is why I am this involved in this struggle.
A member of parliament at the event says France should play its role.
I believe that France, which stands in a unique position on the international stage, and should act that way, should raise a strong voice to denounce the crimes committed against the Uyghur community in the Xinjiang region in China.
Another parliamentarian proposed a resolution to denounce and condemn the Uyghur genocide. It was signed by 47 members of parliament.
Why are we doing this? Because there is no possible dialogue with a country that says, there is nothing to see in our country, move along, nothing is happening here, and it's interference if you talk about it.
The local Falun Gong community was also part of the event. Adherents in China have been persecuted, facing torture and imprisonment for 22 years. A London tribunal in 2019 concluded they have been the main victims of forced organ harvesting. The president of the French Falun Dafa Association spoke briefly about the ongoing attack on the peaceful practice in China.
According to verifiable numbers, 4,660 Falun Gong practitioners have died as a result of torture by the Chinese regime. But the real death toll is huge. Millions are locked up in detention centers and re-education camps.
A passerby expressed her feelings about the ongoing persecution.
If you open your eyes, you read the press, a lot is said. It's very serious, very, very worrying. China manufactures almost everything. We are becoming dependent. We, the industry in Europe, need to wake up.
The protest took place as China's Communist Party marked 100 years and was among many global events highlighting China's alleged human rights abuses. Neil Woodrow, NTD News.
Officials from 130 countries agreed to the broad outlines of a plan to overhaul rules for taxing international companies. The deal calls for a minimum tax rate of at least 15%. NTD's Joanne Robson has more on this.
Some 130 countries representing more than 90% of global GDP agreed on Thursday on a global minimum tax of 15%. It's part of a worldwide effort to keep multinational firms from dodging taxes by shifting their profits to countries with low rates. The Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, which hosted the talks, says a 15% tax could yield around £110 billion in additional global tax revenues annually. All major economies signed up, including India and China, but so did many noted tax havens, such as Bermuda, the Cayman Islands, and the British Virgin Islands. The minimum corporate tax does not require countries to set their rates at the agreed floor. Instead, it gives countries the right to apply a top-up levy on companies' income coming from a country that has a lower rate. The French finance minister calls it a historic deal.
It's an ambitious agreement, a global and innovative one. It's the most important international tax deal in a century.
He says he will do his best to convince reluctant countries to join. One of them is Ireland. Its 12.5% rate has attracted some of the world's biggest multinationals to open shop on the Emerald Isle, employing 1 in 8 workers. The Irish finance minister says the agreement is not yet acceptable, but he would constructively engage in discussions going forward. Ireland says it wants any deal to allow small countries to use tax competition as a lever to compensate for the natural advantages enjoyed by larger ones. Countries still have to agree on technical details by October, when the G20 leaders meet for the final endorsement. The new rules are expected to be implemented by 2023. Joanne Robson, NTD News.
A recent report says the Chinese Communist Party tried to influence Western countries during the pandemic. It says the regime encouraged nationwide lockdowns in its international diplomacy. NTD's David Vivez has the details.
European countries are copying China's methods with regard to managing the CCP virus, also known as coronavirus. This is the conclusion of a report released on June 21st, which details the reactions of several governments over the past year.
The Chinese Communist regime said it found the solution to the pandemic and from this point started a very aggressive diplomacy against other countries, saying they should copy it. That's where I started this study.
When the CCP virus emerged in 2020, European countries had various solutions in mind. For example, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said to let the virus circulate as a way to achieve herd immunity. In France, a government report showed Taiwan's strategies to control the CCP virus delivered excellent results, including low death tolls. However, both countries choose to go for a nationwide lockdown. According to Husson, this has to do with pressure from the Chinese Communist Party.
Nationwide lockdowns extended the duration of the crisis and complicated herd immunity, and this happened under the influence of Chinese diplomacy.
The report says the UK, France, Sweden and Italy all went through a similar pressure campaign. In Italy, some hashtags saying "Thanks China" or "Grazie Cina" went viral in March 2020, but the report says at least a third of these hashtags came from bots. This happened at a time when China sent ambassadors to Italy to encourage the authorities to impose a national lockdown.
There were hundreds of thousands of messages on Twitter that came from bots, just like the 50-cent army in China. Those were supporting the CCP's propaganda in European countries.
3.9 billion people have been under lockdown at some time since the spread of the CCP virus. Reporting by David Vivez, NTD News, Paris.
The French castle where Leonardo Da Vinci lived 500 years ago is hosting an exhibition of the Italian master's art. NTD's France correspondent David Vivez brings us his report from Clos Lissé.
Among the dozen castles in the Loire region, one has a special reputation thanks to one of its residents. The Clos Lissé was the last home of Leonardo da Vinci, and it's where the famed Italian painter died more than 500 years ago. The Simbrist family has been taking care of the castle.
The mission of my family is to bring out the universal legacy of Da Vinci, to transmit his memory and what he did.
Da Vinci was a true Renaissance man. He was an engineer, architect, botanist, anatomist, and hydrologist. But according to him, there was one art form that was a supreme science: painting. That is because, according to him, painting can transform the mind of the painter into a copy of a divine mind. Only around 20 paintings can be attributed to Da Vinci, but he put a tremendous amount of time into each piece, leaving behind thousands of drawings and sketches. Da Vinci famously used a technique called sfumato, which blurs the contour of figures to create a softer transition. He used sfumato on many paintings, whether it's hands, faces or nature. He painted everything with the utmost precision.
Da Vinci tackled an immense task that was almost pharaonic, and all of his life he explored the field of arts and sciences in great depth. But it was obvious that to embrace all the mysteries of the universe was an impossible thing. Leonardo da Vinci was short of time, however. Here at Le Clos Lissé, he never stopped working and perfected the works that were most dear to him. He had many ambitious projects, even at the end of his life, but some of these were unfinished dreams, unfortunately.
It's clear that art had a deeper philosophical meaning to Da Vinci. For example, he believed the nature of light and darkness was like truth versus doubt. The Italian painter sought to better himself as a person, which would in turn help perfect his artistry. And in his writings, he asked for the divine for guidance. But before he passed away, Da Vinci said he had not fulfilled his duty toward God and mankind. One painting might shed a light on what was on his mind during his last days. It is called The Virgin and Cynthane with the Child.
This painting undoubtedly represents the spiritual testament of Leonardo da Vinci. First, it represents the transmission of generations. It represents a trilogy. You see the compassion of the Virgin, the innocence of the child playing with the lamb, the blue mountains behind. Looks like a wonderful future is set for mankind.
Da Vinci's legacy lives on. His techniques and pieces inspire many artists, even today. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
A prototype of a flying car successfully completed its first Intercity flight this week. It took off from Nitra Airport in western Slovakia on Monday morning and landed 35 minutes later in the capital Bratislava, 46 miles away. The air car can transform itself from a road vehicle to a plane in under 3 minutes by extending its foldable wings and retractable tail, according to the car designers. The company that developed the prototype, Klein Vision, says the air car has completed over 40 hours of test flights so far. The car has flown at 8,000 feet and reached a maximum cruising speed of over 100 miles per hour. That's the news for today, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Stuart Lees. Thank you for watching our daily news show on YouTube. You can also watch our other programming on channel 190 on Sky TV or on Freeview via channel box on channel 271. In the meantime though, please give this video a like and hit subscribe to our channel. Have a good day.